Terror group ISIS now targeting the man who killed Osama bin Laden. A supporter of the terror group just published Rob O'Neill's home address online, calling on some jihadi here in the United States, a lone wolf, if you will, to execute him. So how can we stop these kinds of threats? A new study goes inside the jihadi mind. That study comes from the group run by former Prime Minister of Great Britain, Tony Blair, who joins us now. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Always a pleasure. You're here in New York City. You spoke at Ground Zero yesterday. You're talking about identifying the troublemakers out there. It seems to be getting worse, doesn't it?
It is getting worse. And what our study shows is if you go inside the philosophy and ideology of these main terrorist groups, it is based on a perversion of religious faith. You've got to deal with it, therefore, in part as an issue to do with this whole radical Islamist business.
Sure. And
unfortunately, some of what they say has echoes in a broader Muslim community. So the majority of Muslims absolutely abhor this violence, but the numbers who share the basic ideology of these groups, not necessarily their methods, but their ideas, goes wider than we want to believe or think.
Sure.
And if you don't attack the ideology, you won't deal with the extremism.
Our federal government, however, is reluctant to use the terms radical Islamists, even though that's what it is.
You see, I think if we don't identify this correctly, it's very hard to resolve it.
Sure.
And the truth of the matter is, the good news, insofar as there is in all the gloom of the Middle East, is there are real allies within Islam who are prepared to come with us today, who realize that they've got to deal with this, not just at the level of the violence, but at the level of the ideas, who've got to be promoting a different theology of Islam, and who've got to be promoting a view of society that is religiously tolerant and open-minded.
Right now, what is going on with Putin and Obama and ISIS is confusing because Mr. Putin said, okay, I'm going to go over and I'm going to kill ISIS. But really what they're doing is they're killing our rebel allies in Syria. What do you think the end game is here for Mr. Putin? What's in it for him?
What he's doing is using Russia's power and its military might in order to support Assad in Syria, and he's cooperating with Iran and Hezbollah in doing that. And what he thinks is that by upping the ante, if you like, and giving more support to Assad, then when it comes to the point of negotiation, which there will have to be a negotiation of some sort in order to resolve this conflict in Syria, then he has greater leverage within that negotiation. Now, in my view, it's very important that we push back hard against that, because, look, Syria is a nightmare. There are now probably 300,000 people that have died. It's the worst refugee crisis since the Second World War. Some people would even say worse than the Second World War. We're now facing a problem in the UK, in Europe, where there are hundreds of thousands of refugees coming to us. You know, with the best will in the world, we don't know who all of these people are.
And that's a worry. They could be terrorists.
It's a real worry for us.
Here in this country, next year, 2016, we're going to choose a new president. I'm sure you're watching the coverage.
It's hard to escape.
It is hard to escape.
Even over in the UK.
The big headline here is that Donald Trump has done so well. He's rocketed to the top of all the polls. What do you think? What is it about his appeal that do you think Americans are saying, I like that guy?
One of the things that does happen, and as I say, it's happened in Britain with the British Labour Party, actually, as well, is that people who emerge like this, particularly when they are outsiders running against the system, they generate huge interest and huge support. Now, those of us who've been a long time in government know that however much you're an outsider, once you get inside, you've got to run the show.
Right.
But it's, you know, the appeal is very obvious, and it's not an appeal that's limited to America, this type of phenomenon. You can see it all over Europe, by the way, today.
Tony Blair, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure, sir.